Story 1. He picked me up in a remote part of New Brunswick when I was hitchhiking and about to freeze to death. He took me to the soup kitchen where he volunteered, got me a hot meal, and put me on a bus back to Montreal. He had spent more than 20 years in prison, which in Canada usually indicates a murder conviction. He became religious and tried to atone for his past. He never proselytized, he just helped. A good man. Story 2. When I was about 12, I visited Disneyland with my mom and left my bag full of birthday money and souvenirs in Disney California Adventure Park. An elderly couple who had noticed the bag stayed with it in that spot until we returned more than 70 minutes later. They had no obligation to guard it and could have turned it in, but they made sure it was where I had left it to make it easier for us. It has been at least 20 years and I still think about it. Story 3. When I was grieving my mom, I tried to go out and be social a little too early. I felt the start of a panic attack and left the event. I took an Uber so I could get home as soon as possible. The driver asked if I was okay. I told him about my mom. He told me about his mother, who had died a few years earlier. We shared memories. He told me about a recipe of his mother's that he missed, and I asked him to send it to me. He did. He said he would remember my mom for me, and I could help remember his. Is that not the sweetest? He's not a total stranger anymore. He had texted me the recipe, so I had his number. I sent him a photo of my attempt to make it the other day, and he was so grateful. Story 4. My husband was dying. We were in a Catholic hospital, but we were not Catholic or religious in any way. I found a nun who was very busy. I interrupted her and asked if she would pray for my husband. She took one look at me and said, "Let us go to his room." We held his hands. She joined us and spoke the most beautiful words I have ever heard. I told her we were not Catholic. She said it did not matter. She stood with me and said a prayer of kind words for me. I have never forgotten it. Story 5. It was a little over 2 weeks after my cesarean section. I had a very traumatic pregnancy and birth, and postpartum was so hard that it was not safe for me to be alone. My family took me out to brunch. I was changing my baby's diaper and silently crying as I tried to comfort him while my mom, who was supposed to be watching me, was using the restroom. A group of drunk women came in. One of them saw my baby and started complimenting how calm and happy he was. She said he looked like such a calm newborn and that she had never seen a baby that young in public who was not upset. So I must be doing something right as a mother. I lost it and could not hold back my tears. I thanked her and continued struggling with the diaper. She offered to change it, so I let her, and she kept casually telling me how well I was doing. Her friends kept chiming in with praise and agreement. My baby had a clean diaper. She hugged me and told me I was doing amazing and that she could tell my baby was very loved and well cared for. Then they all went into the bathroom stalls as my mom came out of hers. We left, and I was a complete emotional mess. But here I am 2 years later, still getting teary-eyed when I think about it. I really needed someone to give me comfort and to tell me I was doing things right, because postpartum had convinced me for a while that my baby would be better off if I were dead. Story 6. On Halloween, I was at a store near my parents' house and only wanted a pack of gum. The man in front of me was making a huge purchase, which did not bother me because it was a grocery store. He turned to me and asked, "Is that all you're getting?" I told him it was. He added it to his bill, handed it back to me, and said, "Happy Halloween." It made my day not because of the free gum, but because it was such a random act of kindness. Story 7. I was supposed to drive out of town to see my best friend, but I had car trouble and could not make the trip. I was crying and upset. I stopped at the Chick-fil-A drive-thru to get dinner before heading home. The associate gave me a free milkshake because they said I sounded like I needed something to cheer me up. A simple gesture really helped me through a tough situation that day. Story 8. Several years ago, my husband was in the hospital for 3 weeks for open heart surgery. They were not sure he was going to make it. Fortunately, he did. I traveled 45 minutes each way every day to spend hours in his room. I was dealing with my mother being in a nursing home, so I was constantly fielding calls from them. The stress was unreal. The day before my husband was discharged, I had gone to see him, and then decided to stop at a market in town to get some Portuguese cheese. When I went to put it in my trunk, my key broke off in the lock. It was also the key for the car. I had to call the American Automobile Association to get a locksmith, and that took a while. When he finally showed up, I burst into tears and all my worries came spilling out. It was the last thing I needed. The locksmith felt so bad for me that he significantly reduced the bill. Story 9. This was not a grand gesture, but it was very kind and impactful for me. I was a new mom on New Year's Eve in Ohio. It was cold and I was sick. I had my baby with me and it was crowded, so we had to park far away. After I loaded the groceries into the car, a woman saw me and asked if she should return my cart. I said yes. I'll never forget her. Story 10. Someone unexpectedly paid about $300 for my groceries. I always thought that kind of thing was made up. But no. A man swooped in front of me just as I was about to pay and said, "Allow me to get that for you. God bless you." I realized later it was probably because I was wearing a shirt that said "Religion makes me gag." Very nice man though. I hope his God blesses him too. Story 11. A random man said, "I really like your dress. Quite pretty." It did not come off as sleazy at all, especially because the dress was conservative. I do not get compliments often, and that was all it took to make my day. Story 12. I was in Chicago alone when a man began following and harassing me. I hid in a store. Just as he was about to approach again, a woman came up to me, pretended to know me, and asked where we were going for coffee. She grabbed my arm and hurried out with me. The man shouted and followed for a short while, but she walked me to a safe place. I wish I had gotten her contact information or been able to thank her properly. I think about her often and hope life is treating her well. Story 13. He paid for my groceries when my card was declined. I cried in the car because that was the sweetest thing anyone had done for me, as I was already panicking. Bless his heart. Story 14. I was riding my bike up a very steep hill and reached a section where most people dismount and walk. I powered through but was clearly struggling. A complete stranger walking by clapped and shouted, "You can do it." Story 15. I posted on my local Facebook group asking if anyone knew the number of a good locksmith to get my keys from my car, which were locked inside. A guy who lived right down the road offered to come and do it for free. He tried for about an hour before giving up. It seemed like a lost cause. We gave him some cash and groceries to thank him anyway. As soon as he drove off, I said whatever and tried the door. It opened. Story 16. I moved to Washington from Texas to be with my boyfriend. I moved my entire life and my dog into his house and did not get a job because he said he could take care of me. I was young, burned out, and he made good money, an easy trap to fall into. One day he woke up and decided we were over and I had to leave. I had no friends or family nearby, no money, and nowhere to go. Ironically, I had been volunteering with a homelessness resource coalition and was supposed to work that day. So I had to call and tell the team leader I would not be in because I had to figure my life out. The team leader got me a dog-friendly hotel for the week and offered to put my name in for a job that was open. He also put in a word with an apartment complex he worked closely with. They agreed to delay my rent for 2 months if I had an offer letter upon move-in. I did not even have a bed. The apartment complex manager bought me a mattress. I needed so much grace at that point in my life and was given it in spades. 6 years later, I still get emotional thinking about it. Story 17. I graduated from college while my husband was deployed to Iraq. I walked across the stage and received my diploma by myself. While we were adjusting our caps, the girl next to me helped me with mine, and I helped her with hers. We started talking, and when she learned I had no one with me, she and her family invited me to join their celebration so I would not be alone. They sent me home with some food and pictures, and then we parted ways. None of us thought to exchange phone numbers, so I never saw them again. It was incredibly sweet of them to be my family for a day. Story 18. I dropped all my popcorn right before Wicked started. The girl beside me offered to fill my small bag with her extra-large popcorn because her refills were free. I filled my bag. She had enough for the movie, refilled afterward, and went home. Thank you so much for the popcorn, kind stranger. Story 19. I have chronic tonsillitis and I cannot afford to have it removed, so every 3 to 4 months I am in pain when it flares up. Once I walked into a pharmacy and did not have the money for the medicine or the injection for it. The woman at the counter saw that I was a student and clearly struggling. She asked me a few questions and why my parents did not pay for the medicine. I told her I had just lost my mother that year. Moved, she gave me the medicine free of charge. It was expensive, but she did not hesitate. She just wanted to see me get better. Story 20. In December 2019, I was going through a very hard time and needed a break. An older couple came into the restaurant where I was working. I recognized them because I had served them before. When they paid and left, I cleaned their table and saw a Christmas card. I opened it. Inside was a note that said I was a great waitress and had a beautiful soul, and there was a $50 tip. I cried for about 10 minutes. That amount was more than I had earned in tips over the previous 2 weeks combined, and my regular pay was only $300 every 2 weeks. I used the money to buy food so I could eat something other than leftovers from closing, for the first time in almost a month. Story 21. Just this week, I was a finalist for an award and our local paper ran a feature. A lovely older man called my school and offered to donate his late wife's piano organ to me. I already have one, so I asked if I could donate it to a child whose mother has recently escaped a serious domestic violence situation. He gave his blessing and included a television for them. What a kind man. Story 22. I took the train to Chicago for a day drinking trip about a decade ago. I was wearing a new pair of shorts someone had bought me as a gift. It was a long, miserable day with friend drama, and during the day my phone broke because of those shorts. I decided to call it a day and head back. On the train, when the conductor came around to check tickets, I reached for my wallet and realized it had slipped out of the same poorly designed shorts. I was stranded and about to be kicked off when a kind man offered to pay for my ticket. I asked for his information so I could pay him back, and he wrote it down. By the time I got home, his note had fallen out of my pocket, so I never got to repay him. I dedicated the burning of those shorts to him. Story 23. One time I desperately needed to jumpstart my car, and I posted about it in a local Facebook group. A woman replied that she was sending her husband to help. When he got there and saw I was in a wheelchair, he insisted on jumpstarting my car, shoveling the sidewalk, and giving me $20. I tried to tell him I was okay and to refuse his help, but he insisted. I was struggling at the time, and this was so kind. Story 24. A Reddit user sent me a brand new copy of The Art of Bob's Burgers. It was because of a comment I posted in passing, and it is the nicest thing anyone has done for me in a long time. Story 25. I was a broke college student with no health insurance. After a medical emergency, I racked up $10,000 in debt and was in tears because I was already living paycheck to paycheck and had no idea how I could pay. My nurse must have overheard me, because when I was discharged, she personally took me to the hospital financial coordinator, advocated for me, and got the entire debt forgiven. Story 26. A long time ago, I was moving by myself and had bought many large boxes that would not all fit in my car. A complete stranger with a truck offered to drop off the larger boxes for me and did so, expecting nothing in return. Recently, I needed a 2-week follow-up appointment after spinal surgery and could not drive. The person who usually helped was unavailable, so I posted a request in an online group and found someone who drove me as a good deed. She would not even accept gas money. Story 27. I was waiting at a bus stop on a hot, muggy summer day. A kind woman came out of her house across the street and gave me a bottle of cold water. We did not know each other, and I thought that was very kind of her. Story 28. Once a girl stopped and told me that my freckles were beautiful. Story 29. I was lugging a massive piece of luggage at the train station and had to climb the stairs because the elevators were broken and my platform was on the other side of the tracks. A man approached, smiled, and said, "Let me carry this for you." Before I could respond, he whisked my luggage away and started jogging up the stairs. The luggage was heavy. It even contained another small packed bag, but that did not slow him down. Only when we reached the other platform did he put it down and jokingly ask if I had a body inside. I did not. I regret not getting his name, but I will always be grateful for his help. Story 30. A one-night stand after getting divorced boosted my ego. I never saw her again, which was sad. She was fun. Story 31. Helped cover 50 cents because I was short of the next dollar needed for gas for my car. Story 32. A gentleman selling me a car made me a cup of coffee the other day. I could not tell you the last time someone did that. He did not just show me where it was. He stood there and made the coffee for me. Granted, he was not a total stranger, but he did not have to do that. Story 33. I came back to my car to find a completely flat tire from a large puncture I had not noticed when I parked. I was suffering from a chronic condition at the time and was scheduled for an important screening I had waited weeks to get. A few construction workers paving the sidewalk noticed my distress and immediately changed my tire with my spare. I had no idea how to do it, though I have since learned. I started crying because I was so grateful. They said not to worry and that they would hope someone would do the same for their daughter. I made it to my appointment because of them. They were truly a godsend. Story 34. I vomited before boarding the plane, and they gave me Himalayan mint lozenges. Story 35. They gave me a computer when I was a student and my old personal computer died. Story 36. The memory that has warmed my heart for many decades is simple. I was rushing through a crowd to enter a store during a blizzard. A man held the door for me. I said, "Thank you." He replied, "It was my pleasure." That was it. We continued on our way. I don't know why that touched me so deeply. I was young, alone and lonesome in a big city, dealing with a recent breakup and an utterly broken heart. His sincere words were healing for me. I'm tearing up just thinking of this memory now. So for me, it has been the smallest things that have moved me deeply. Story 37. Someone let me change lanes while I was driving. Story 38. I was flying alone with two young children. My autistic daughter was about 3 years old and cried inconsolably for almost the entire flight. My son was hyperactive and was intrusively talking nonstop to everyone around him. I felt completely overwhelmed. Thankfully, it was only about an hour. While we were waiting for the luggage, a woman from the flight made a beeline toward me. I tried to avoid eye contact because I was frazzled and did not want to be yelled at in the airport by a stranger. As she approached, she said, "Good job, Mom. That must have been so stressful for you. But your love for your children was evident from start to finish. You did an excellent job." The relief I felt is hard to put into words. Looking back, I believe she recognized that my children were neurodivergent, even though that term was not commonly used then. Instead of adding to my stress, she went out of her way to encourage me. I pay it forward when I see another parent struggling, especially when I suspect their child is neurodivergent. Story 39. A stranger walked me to a safe spot and waited with me for a ride-share driver after the date I was on became belligerently drunk and slapped me outside the pub because I declined to go home with him and was running out to get away. He and his friends stepped in and threatened to beat the man if he did not leave. His friends walked off, but he stayed until I was safe and kept me talking about his family and pets to take my mind off the terrible date. Story 40. This was several years ago. My son was returning to Boston after Christmas break. When he got back to his apartment, the heater was not working. He was late, he was tired, and it was only going to get down to about 40 degrees that night, so he bundled up and went to sleep. He slept straight through until about 4 p.m. The next day, he called me, as if I had a 2,000-mile-long wrench to help him fix the problem. Calls to the landlord went unanswered. It was expected to drop to about -15 degrees that night, so I went into problem-solving mode, which I almost never use. I looked for space heaters that a store would deliver, but they were sold out. Space heaters within a bike ride of his apartment were sold out. Freelance arsonists were booked. My last-ditch Hail Mary was to post on the Tufts University parents page. Anyone want to help my son out with a miracle delivery of a space heater? I will pay for the heaters, your gas, and your time. You pick up and deliver. What followed was perhaps the most amazing display of kindness and humanity I have yet to experience. Lots of private messages offering to provide emergency heat. I responded to the first offer. She lived about 30 minutes from my son, and within 45 minutes she was at his door with 3 large space heaters, a home-cooked meal, a hot chocolate, and advice on how to get the landlord moving. I asked for her Venmo so I could pay for her time and kindness. Not necessary. No, really, let me thank you somehow. No need. I would really like to. Absolutely not. My daughter goes to Tufts, and if we cannot help each other out, then I do not know what we are doing. This wonderful woman left what I am sure was a quiet family night, rummaged through her belongings to find not just 1 but 3 space heaters, made him a plate of food, loaded it all up, traveled half an hour in the cold, and even stopped to get him a hot chocolate, with instructions to keep the heaters as long as he needed. Most importantly, she delivered some surrogate parent love from his mother and me. Honestly, I get teary every time I think about it. My daughter called her a national treasure who must be protected at all costs. Story 41. Back when I got my first PC from the thrift store, it did not come with a power cord. I went back and asked if I could take one from a flat-screen TV that was there. The manager of the building said, "You did not get a power cable? Yes, you can have this." The best part was that the power cable was free. There is still some good in the world. Story 42. Someone bought me some candy when I was working at the register alone on a very busy, stressful night. They helped me with my car when the steering wheel was jammed. Story 43. Just a few days ago, someone reattached my license plates to my truck while I was at work because they saw they were loose. Story 44. A drunk man proclaimed he was God and tried to bless me once. I found a $20 bill on the ground an hour later. I like to think he was the reason. Story 45. Pro tip. Keep $50 in your wallet for a purpose like this. Be posted about on Reddit in 20 years' time. Story 46. Buy me some beautiful flowers to help them locate their loved ones in the hospital. Story 47. A Southwest Airlines flight attendant helped me when I was flying home to say goodbye to my uncle, who was dying of prostate cancer. She heard me crying in the airplane lavatory. When I stepped out, she was waiting with a bottle of water and a tissue. I told her why I had broken down and began crying again. She listened. She hugged me, said my uncle was lucky to have a niece who cared so much, and kept bringing me juice, tissues, and snacks throughout the flight. She hugged me again as I was deplaning. It was the kindest thing a complete stranger has ever done for me. She let me grieve so I could say goodbye to my uncle without burdening him or my aunt, who was exhausted and grieving as well. This happened in 2015. People like her make the world a better place. Story 48. I was about 11 years old when I bought a box of chocolate Pocky for my sister and me. I have a learning disability, so I struggle with money and math. I thought I had enough money, but I did not. I did not know what to say because my social anxiety made me freeze. A woman quietly handed the cashier the money I was missing. I was in shock and looked at her. I thanked her repeatedly and began to cry. She was incredibly kind. I hope she is doing well. Story 49. I once spilled my drink in a cafe. A stranger offered me napkins and even bought me a new drink. It made my day and reminded me how kind people can be. Story 50. This happened in September. My family of 4 was visiting Paris, and while we were waiting for a cooking class to start, my 12-year-old daughter set her phone down and left it behind. About 20 minutes later, as we walked to the bakery to start the class, she realized she did not have her phone. We called it, and the person who answered said he had found the phone and would meet us at a building several metro stops away after he got off work. We asked if he was trying to get money from us, and he said no. I am an information technology professional, so I thought it was a scam and that we should go to the police or simply accept that we were not getting the phone back. We went to the building and waited for 30 minutes. The man and his friend showed up and handed over the phone. We were so happy and began to cry, thanking him and saying there are still good people in the world. I tried to give him money as a thank you, and he said no, thank you, and to enjoy our trip. What are the odds of getting a lost phone back in a major city? Unbelievable. Story 51. One of the hardest Christmases we had. I was in the Dollar Tree trying to pick out wrapping paper and gift bags when I was hit by one of those bone-deep sighs as an older woman walked by. She smiled at me and said it would be okay. I wandered to the other end of the store and she came up behind me holding a $20 bill and insisted I take it to help. Amazing. The other was when my oldest was 4.5 and my youngest was a new little sack of potatoes. We were at the Children's Museum. The baby was cluster feeding, and my oldest was rolling on the floor, whining and wailing that he wanted to leave already, but I could not pull the baby off. I had forgotten to put nipple pads on, so one side was soaked with milk, and honestly I probably had not showered in 4 days. A mother walked by with her kids, veered over to me, and I thought she was either going to yell at me for his tantrum or for breastfeeding in public. She smiled, patted my shoulder, and told me, "You are a wonderful mom, and you are doing great." I nearly cried on the spot. Story 52. On 2 separate occasions when I ran out of fuel, 2 different men with only one arm came to my rescue. One of them was a didgeridoo player who performed with the Australian band Midnight Oil. Story 53. They kept me company when I was alone. The problem is that later, when life separates your path from that person, it hurts deeply. Story 54. I was at work in a small retail store, trying to hold it together because I had to put my dog to sleep the next day. A man I had never seen before came in, noticed I was not okay, and gave me a hug as I cried on his shoulder. He will never know how much that meant to me, and I still think about his kindness nearly 20 years later. Story 55. It was 1980. I was 19 years old, female, taking the bus from Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri to the St. Louis airport. I started talking with a soldier on the bus and we had a casual conversation over the 3-hour trip. We arrived at the St. Louis airport and said our goodbyes. When I reached my gate, my flight had been moved. I was in the middle of the hustle and bustle of a large airport, confused and frightened about where to go and scared I was going to miss my flight. Suddenly, the same soldier appeared, called my name, and snapped me out of my panic. He helped me find my gate, made sure I was settled, and then left for his own flight. I only had a short time to thank him before he left. I do not remember his name, but I will never forget how his kindness pulled me out of the panic that was about to overwhelm me, and how calmly he helped a scared young woman find her way. Story 56. A couple of Christmases ago, we were flying to Rhode Island out of Atlanta and, miraculously, arrived early. My family of 4 ate at a sit-down restaurant, the Atlanta Hawks restaurant. After the meal, the waitress said a stranger had paid our bill and tip. Merry Christmas. Story 57. She pulled me aside from the busy crowd and tended my wounded knee at an underground train station. She asked me to step aside and wait on a bench while she asked station staff for disinfectant and bandages. I often think about her, wondering how she is, whether she is happy, and wishing her health and happiness because she deserves all the good things in this world. Story 58. It was the middle of winter. I went outside to start my car to warm it up before going to school. I went back inside to get the rest of my things, and when I returned my car had been cleared of all snow and ice. A woman who worked there, whom I never saw again, came up to me, gave me a piece of hard candy, and told me I was doing well. Her clearing my car during such a difficult time in my life, when I was struggling mentally, is something I will always remember. I never even learned her name. Thank you, kind woman. I am crying again remembering it. Story 59. When I was in high school, my friends and I started a tradition of giving each person in the group a surprise birthday when they turned 18. They were not big parties. We would just surprise the person with a small celebration. For example, with one friend we all met at the end of the school day, took her to a local diner, hung out for a few hours, and sang happy birthday many times. We were not stupid, but as teenagers we sometimes made choices we had not thought through. We decided to stage a fake kidnapping for one friend because we thought she might be expecting a surprise party and we wanted to mix it up. She was in a car with a friend. Our plan was to pull up alongside the car in a minivan, open the sliding door, jump out wearing bandanas over our faces, and drag her into the van to take her to the party. One friend was driving his parents' newer minivan. Someone in the back opened the sliding door while the van was still moving, and it came off the track. It was hanging by one corner. None of us were auto shop kids. We were all advanced placement students, band members, or on the school literary magazine, so we were clueless and freaked out. especially the kid whose parents owned the van. After a quick huddle in the middle of the street, we decided we could not just let the door dangle, and we definitely could not drive with it dragging on the road. Two of us took turns lifting the back of the door and walking alongside the van while it was slowly driven down the street. Our thinking was to get it off the road and then slow walk it to someone's house. We had been walking and carrying the door for about 2 blocks when we saw two men in their early 20s sitting in lawn chairs in a front yard with a cooler between them. They laughed at us. As we drew level with their yard, they yelled and asked what had happened. We told them the door had come off, and they laughed harder. Then they came into the street and spent 15 minutes getting the door back on its track, joking with us the whole time. We offered to pay them, but they refused. Story 60. I was at an air show, standing outside the hangar with the bathrooms while I waited for my sister and brother-in-law to come out. My young dog had died suddenly the week before, and I had received a call that his ashes were ready for pickup. I had an ugly cry, washed my face in the bathroom, and was outside trying to pull myself together to enjoy this rare family get-together. A woman walked by and asked where she could find ice cream, and I gave her directions. Just as my sister walked up, the kind stranger looked at me and said I had beautiful skin. That lady's comment meant the world to me and still does. Story 61. I left my phone in a cab on my way to the Boston airport. I got all the way through Transportation Security Administration security before realizing it was missing. The Transportation Security Administration agent saw me panicking, went through my things again to double-check that the phone was not in my bag, and then called the cab company for me. The cab company said it was company protocol to bring any lost items to dispatch and that I could pick up my phone there. In a thick Boston accent, she yelled that I was leaving, needed my phone now, and should come to the airport. I was 19, just standing there crying. Miraculously, the cab company reached the driver, who did turn around and meet me at the terminal with my phone. I gave him all the cash I had, but he said he would have done it for free because I had been a polite passenger. It was very kind of him. Phone in hand, the Transportation Security Administration agent waved me to the front of the line, and I made my flight without a problem. Neither the driver nor the Transportation Security Administration agent had to help me. It was my own mistake, but I was young, poor, and overwhelmed, and their kindness meant everything to me. Story 62. I lost my digital music player on the subway in South Korea. I tried to ask a station agent if there was a lost and found, but my Korean is not great. A Korean woman who spoke English heard me struggling and offered to translate for me. Story 63. They passed away and donated their kidney to me. I have no idea who they were, only that they were young, probably in their 20s. The Transplant Hospital and the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act do not allow us to know who they were or to contact their families. I received my kidney on July 22, 2022, after a 6.5-year wait on dialysis. I am forever grateful. Story 64. I used to be homeless. I was hitchhiking through Northern California and Oregon when a kind couple in a pickup truck told me to get in the back. They stopped at a grocery store. I thought they were buying things for themselves. They put 3 bags of groceries in the back with me and, when they dropped me off at the campground, told me the food was for me. The kindest part had not yet happened. About half an hour later, I noticed my journal of poetry was missing. I had left it in the truck. The book was special and personal to me, and I started to cry. Then the truck returned. They had driven back to return the tattered notebook I had left behind. Story 65. I went to a medical center for my first appointment with a mental health therapist. I looked at a directory but could not find the mental health clinic. I was in a phase where I felt I could do nothing right and was surprised I could not find the clinic. A woman must have seen my distress because she asked if she could help. She could not find the clinic either, so she asked a passerby, and he told us it was at the north entrance. We were at the south entrance. I had felt self-conscious about going to the clinic. I remember her kindness and lack of judgment. I had done something right. I had asked my doctor for help. He set up the appointment, adjusted my medication, and asked me to see him weekly to make sure I stayed alive. If you need help, there are people who will help you. Story 66. I totaled my car in a very bad accident halfway through a road trip. We were physically okay but did not have a car to continue the trip. A man with a wooden toy on his dashboard who worked in wildfire suppression showed up. He said he was going to the same state we were driving to, though a different city, and he was willing to reroute and drop us where we wanted. We took a risk and asked him whether he would kidnap and kill us. He said no, so we got in his car and he drove us for 7 hours. Almost at our destination, my now ex-partner began showing concussion symptoms. So he sped through traffic and took us to the emergency room while monitoring his condition. He stayed with us until he was sure we were okay. He told us that if we ever got married, he would officiate our wedding. I did not end up marrying my ex-partner, but he is our only mutual contact on Instagram right now, laughing out loud. Story 67. My friend and I backpacked around Colombia a year or two ago. We arrived in Bogota late at night and had not exchanged any cash into pesos yet. It was difficult to find a place that was open and would accept cards. At one point, we asked a woman with a stall on the street selling pizza if she could take a card. She could not. As we were about to say thank you and walk away, a man standing near the stall stopped us and offered to buy the pizza for us. We tried to refuse because we felt bad taking his money, but he insisted and ended up buying us 2 slices of pizza. It was not a large gesture, but it was very helpful and much appreciated in the moment. I still think about it often. Story 68. 2 months ago, I injured my back really badly. I stayed at home for a while, but then decided to see a walk-in doctor to get it checked. The receptionist was rude and unsympathetic. She said they did not have time and that the last patient was about to be seen. The woman who was going to be the last patient saw how much pain I was in and offered her spot to me. What a wonderful person. I wish I at least knew her name. Story 69. Years ago, some friends and I were driving somewhere. I can't remember where. My friend's car was an old junker. At one point it died on the road. We pushed it into a nearby restaurant parking lot and realized we had to push it back home, which was at least a couple of miles away. One of us sat in the car steering while 2 of us pushed, mostly uphill. We were taking a break when a pickup truck with 4 or 5 Hispanic men pulled up and asked if we needed a hand. They tied our car to their truck and towed us all the way home. I offered them the cash I had, but they said no, it was no problem. We thanked them profusely and they drove away. Story 70. It was the 4th of July, and my partner hit a cat while driving downhill in a neighborhood approaching a stop sign. It was traumatic for both of us since we are both cat owners. I was attending to the cat when a car drove by that could have nearly hit me because of the angle of the hill. They pulled up. The child in the back seat asked what happened and then whether the cat was breathing. I said I do not think so. The mother came out and we told her what happened. She calmly walked us through our options, took a towel from the trunk to cover the cat, said she would post on Nextdoor about what happened, and reassured us that this happens all the time. I do not know what we would have done had she not shown up. Story 71. Multiple strangers have helped me jump my car because my unreliable car kept dying. Felt wonderful. I was in a tough spot, scrambling, when an angel appeared, usually in the form of a blue-collar worker, and helped me without my having to ask. Story 72. This is not super deep, but a few weeks ago I went to McDonald's to grab lunch for my kids on the way to pick up my oldest from school. It took longer than I expected to get the food, and I was rushing. I had my 2-year-old twins with me and no stroller, so I could not carry everything to the car and left some of the food inside while I put them in the car. As I was buckling them in, I saw a woman bringing the rest of my order out. She was not an employee, just another customer. I live in South Florida, where people are not always friendly, so I really appreciated her kindness in noticing I was rushed and helping me. Story 73. I'm not sure if it was the nicest thing, but recently a stranger came up to me while I was walking and started chatting, asking where I was from. I thought it was a scam and was a bit guarded. He did not ask for anything but said he was happy to meet me and that something good was going to happen soon. I received a promotion at work shortly after. I am not sure it was connected, but I was stressed and tired at the time, and his words were a nice thing to hear. Story 74. A customer thanked me for returning a grocery cart and told me I was doing a fantastic job, while my boss said I was only okay. It was nice that they were kind about everyday things when most people don't even look at you. Story 75. My cat was ill and I rushed her to the vet, but sadly they could not save her. I lived only a short drive away, but I was not in much of a state to drive home. The vet nurse asked if I wanted to call a taxi. A man with his dog overheard. He offered to drive me home in my car and walk back to the vet so I would not have to return later for the car. They were very kind. He and his partner visited a few days later with a bottle of wine and a bunch of flowers, and we have had dinner together a few times since then. Story 76. They gave me an umbrella in the rain and said I could keep it. Felt like something out of a movie. They were very kind. Story 77. I cleaned the snow off my windshield as I loaded my groceries into the car. He was such a nice man. Story 78. A gentleman tipped me $2,000 for an electric bike on a one-drink order. The tab was $10. Story 79. Who knew $21 could mean so much? I was shopping at Dollar Tree for Christmas decorations for my mother, who had moved into an assisted living facility a few months earlier. For 60 years she had collected, displayed, and decorated our house. It was always over the top, and there was no way I could replace the magic we all experienced every year. Being on a budget, even at Dollar Tree, left me with very little to spend, but I hoped to find meaningful, different items that would transform her new apartment into the magic the six of us felt each year. I was in the checkout line, conversing with a stranger probably in his late 60s or early 70s, who noticed the items I placed on the belt to be scanned. He asked, genuinely curious, whether I was just getting started or adding to my decorations. I explained the situation, and he said that all mothers deserve to be celebrated, cherished, and loved. While saying this, he quietly told the cashier he wanted to pay for my items. He did not know that I had planned to pay with a nearly maxed-out credit card I had been using to replace the comforts my mother had given up when she moved, in order to pay for her care. That was 3 years ago, and that Christmas was magical for my mother and me because a stranger made it so. It means even more to me now because, as I write this, she is on hospice. If I could find that man, I would tell him how deeply his generosity touched me and how he helped me bring back some of the magic my mother always made sure we felt. Story 80. This was last week. A surgical nurse stayed overtime to comfort me as I cried in her arms. I was in the emergency room after they found multiple problems in my blood work. I did not let go. She knew I was scared. After a few hours she had to leave, and we eventually left because they had ignored me for 5.5 hours. This absolute saint called the next day. We told her everything. From what I heard, some staff were disciplined because of how bad my condition was. I have an appointment tomorrow to find out what went wrong and the next steps. I am scared, but she said she will be there for my appointment. Story 81. The person in front of me at the drive-thru paid for my order. At the time, I thought they were taking a long time, so I honked. They flipped me off and drove away. Then I found out the reason it took so long was that they were paying for me. I am such an asshole. Story 82. I don't know if it was the nicest, but it was certainly quite nice. I had hooked up with a man on Park Avenue. I had only lived in the city for about 2 months. He called an Uber for me at 2 a.m. to take me back to the dorms. I was 18, confused, conflicted about the hookup, and a bit sad. The driver was Pakistani, like me, and he filled the ride with conversation about Pakistan. He seemed to sense I was feeling down and talked more than any other driver I have had. He was cheerful and alert even at that late hour, and he took my mind off what had happened. Story 83. A friendly woman I had just met took me back to her place and we had sex. I thought that was rather jolly decent of her. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.